Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to tell you, today feels a little different.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Usually when we pick up a book or, a stack of lecture notes, we know exactly what lane we're in.
Mm-hmm.
If we pick up a business book,
Mm-hmm.
we expect charts and quarterly earnings. If we pick up a self-help book, we expect, I don't know, breathing exercises and mantras about finding your inner light.
Right. Very clear boxes.
But today,
Yeah.
today we are looking at something that's just, it refuses to stay in its lane. We are diving into The Algebra of Happiness by Scott Galloway.
It is a unique beast, isn't it? It's this collision of hardcore business strategy and really profound life philosophy.
Exactly.
And frankly, it's a collision that I think a lot of us need right now.
Absolutely. And before we even get into the algebra part, which I promise does not require a
I
calculator,
just didn't know.
we have to talk about the source.
Yeah.
The man himself, Scott Galloway. If you listen to business podcasts or watch cable news, you probably have a mental image of him.
Oh, yeah. The angry professor.
The angry professor. He's the guy dissecting tech monopolies, yelling about WeWork's valuation or, predicting the downfall of some CEO. He's intense.
He is intense, and he owns that intensity. In the source material we're looking at today, he describes himself in a way that I don't think I've ever heard an academic describe themselves.
What does he say?
He calls himself a depressed and insane academic.
Which is just, that sets the bar for honesty pretty high right out of the gate. Depressed and insane.
It does, and it's really important context. This isn't some guru on a mountaintop. He's a professor at NYU's Stern School of Business. He's a serial entrepreneur. He founded companies like L2, Red Envelope, Profit.
Right, so he's been in the game.
He's made millions, he's lost millions, he's been divorced, he struggled with anger. So when he talks about happiness, he isn't coming at it from this, place of serene detachment.
No, he's coming at it from the trenches.
Exactly. He's coming at it as a guy who has been beaten up by life and the market and is trying to figure out how the math actually works.
That's what draws me in. This isn't theoretical fluff. And the setting for this content, it's so cool too. This didn't start as a book. It started as a lecture.
Right, the final lecture.
Picture this. You have a room full of second-year MBA students at NYU. These are the future masters of the universe.
Mm-hmm. The best and the brightest.
They are heading to Wall Street, to Silicon Valley, to top-tier consulting firms. They are exhausted, they are hyper-competitive, and they are sitting there expecting a final review of brand strategy or, market capitalization.
And instead, Galloway he throws out the syllabus. For 3 hours, he doesn't talk about marketing at all.
Nothing.
He talks about life strategy because he realized something profound during his office hours. These students would come in to talk about their careers, asking things like,
Should I take the job at Amazon or the job at Goldman Sachs?
exactly, the classic MBA dilemma. But he saw that underneath those questions, there was a much deeper, more terrifying question they were really asking.
They weren't asking about the job. They were asking, how do I live a life without regret?
That's it. How do I handle the terrifying freedom of adulthood? What if I fail? How do I balance making money with actually, liking the person I see in the mirror?
Wow.
Galloway realized they were looking for a formula. They were business students. They understood algorithms and equations.
Right, they speak that language.
So he gave them one. He tried to break down the messy, chaotic, emotional experience of being human into literal equations, the algebra of happiness.
And that is our mission today. We're going to break down these equations. We've got variables like sweat, zip codes, family, alcohol, and boring careers.
A lot to unpack there.
A lot. And I want to warn you, the listener, right now, Galloway's not a feel-good guru. He's blunt. He talks about trade-offs. He doesn't believe you can have it all at the same time.
No, he's very big on the idea that every choice has a cost, and sometimes the math is brutal. But his point is, if you know the formula, at least you can solve for the variable you actually care about.
So let's start with the overview. Before we get into the specific variables of money or career, he paints this picture of the timeline of life. He calls it the U-curve of happiness.
This is a fascinating concept, and it's actually backed by a lot of social science data, which is what makes it so compelling. I want you to visualize a graph.
Okay.
The y-axis, the vertical one, is happiness. The x-axis, the horizontal one, is age.
Got it. I've got the graph in my head. And I think most people would assume that line is either straight, you're just kind of happy, or you're not. Or maybe it just goes down as you get old and your back starts hurting.
You would think it's a very logical assumption, but the data shows it's a distinct U shape.
A U?
Let's start on the top left of the U. the 20s.
Ah, the glory days.
Right. Galloway calls this the era of Han Solo, beer, and self-discovery.
I love that.
Think about what your life is like in your early 20s. You've left childhood, but you haven't really hit the concrete wall of adulthood yet. Your expectations are sky high.
You're invincible.
You have your physical health. You can recover from a hangover in like an hour. You have your friends. You have freedom. Statistically, self-reported happiness is very, very high here.
It's the magic hour. You think you're going to change the world. You think you're going to be a senator. But then the line starts to drop.
It falls off a cliff from your mid-20s down through your 30s, and it bottoms out in your mid-40s. Galloway calls this the trough.
That sounds incredibly depressing. The trough.
He uses a very technical academic term for this period. He says, shit gets real.
Okay, I appreciate the honesty. But it's true, isn't it? Why does it dip so hard?
Well, think about the mechanics of that age range. You leave the structure of school, you enter the workforce, and suddenly you realize, wait, nobody cares that I was the president of my fraternity.
Right, your credentials from that world don't translate.
They don't. You realize you probably aren't going to be a senator. You aren't going to have a fragrance named after you. You probably aren't going to be the billionaire you thought you'd be.
So the gap between your expectations and your reality starts to widen.
Massively. And the pressure mounts. This is when the bills start. Mortgages, student loans, car payments.
It's relentless.
And it's not just money, it's life. This is the sandwich generation phase. You might have young kids who need everything from you. And at the same time, your parents are aging and they start needing you too.
You're squeezed from both sides.
Completely squeezed. People get divorced in this window. Health scares happen. It's the grind years. You are building a life, but it feels like you were just surviving it.
I think that's such a validating thing to hear, because if you are 35 or 42 and you feel stressed and not particularly happy, you look at Instagram and you think,
What am I doing wrong?
what am I doing wrong? Everyone else is on vacation in Bali.
Right. And Galloway's message is, you aren't doing anything wrong. This is the algebra. This is the dip. It is a universal human experience to feel that weight in the middle years. But, and this is the crucial part, the line goes back up.
Tell us about the upswing. I need some hope here.
The hope is real. Once you hit your 50s, the line starts to climb. By the time people are in their 60s and 70s, they often report happiness levels as high as or even higher than their 20s.
Really? Even though their backs hurt?
Even though their backs hurt. Because something shifts psychologically. It's gratitude.
Gratitude.
You realize, hey, I'm still here. You realize your kids are okay. They didn't turn out to be serial killers. You've built some skills. You've survived. You stop stressing about the things you don't have, and you start deeply, truly appreciating the things you do have.
It's a perspective shift.
Galloway talks about the simple realization that the water is warm, the food is good, and you have survived. There's a profound peace in that.
So the strategy for the middle years is basically endure.
Endurance and perspective. Just keep swimming. But, and here's where the deep dive really begins, Galloway argues that the depth of that trough and the height of the recovery depend entirely on the inputs you put in during the grind.
Ah, so it's not predetermined.
Not at all. The variables you solve for in your 20s and 30s determine what that curve looks like for you.
Which brings us to the first major section of his algebra, the career equations. And this is where Galloway gets a little controversial. He has this equation, sweat equals success.
This is his direct attack on the modern concept of work-life balance, specifically for young people.
He really hates that phrase, doesn't he? Work-life balance.
He loathes it. He views it as a dangerous myth, almost a trap for anyone who isn't born with a trust fund or isn't a singular, once-in-a-generation genius.
So for 99.9% of us.
Exactly. His argument is stark. If you want to be economically successful, and we'll define what that means later, you cannot have balance in your 20s, period.
That is painful to hear. It goes against everything we're told about mental health and setting boundaries.
It does. And he admits it. He calls it struggle porn. But he breaks it down with the specific ratio. He asks you to look at the ratio of time you spend sweating versus the time you spend watching others sweat on ESPN.
Or watching people cook on the Food Network. Or watching influencers live their perfect lives on TikTok.
Exactly. It's about being a participant versus being a spectator. He says, show me a guy who watches ESPN every night and doesn't work out, and I'll show you a future of anger and failed relationships.
Oof.
Versus, show me someone who sweats every day and works their tail off, and I'll show you someone who is good at life. It's that stark.
He shares a really personal story about this. Because if you look at Scott Galloway now, He seems to have a great life. He's rich, he's in St. Bart's, he hangs out with his kids, he has balance.
He has it now, but he emphasizes that his balance now is a direct function of having absolutely zero balance in his 20s and 30s.
He paid for it up front.
He talks about working 80 hours a week. He says, I didn't have a 20s. He lost his hair. He lost his first marriage because he was never home.
He paid a heavy price.
He did. And he's honest about that. He says, I bought my freedom with my youth. And look, he's not saying everyone must do that. If you are happy with a modest income and you value your free time more than economic velocity, that is a perfectly valid choice.
Right, he's not judging that.
No, but, and this is the kicker, don't expect the economic trajectory of a high flyer if you aren't willing to burn the fuel early. He says, the world does not belong to the big, it belongs to the fast. And speed requires sweat. It requires that imbalance.
So it's about managing expectations. You can't have the balanced 20s and the millionaire 40s, usually.
Unless you get very, very lucky, no. It's an exchange. It's a trade-off.
This connects to another piece of advice he gives that I found really funny because it's the exact opposite of every graduation speech I've ever heard.
Yeah.
He says, don't follow your passion.
Yes! This is a classic Galloway contrarian point. He says, people who tell you to follow your passion are already rich.
It sounds so cynical. But when you dig into his logic, it actually makes a lot of sense. Why is following your passion such a trap?
Because for 99% of us, our passion is something like sports or fashion or movies or opening a cool bistro.
The cool jobs, the sexy jobs, the jobs you see in movies.
Right. And because those jobs are cool, everyone wants them. The supply of labor for Vogue magazine or working on a film set is massive. And basic economics tells us that when supply is high, price goes down.
So the pay is terrible.
The pay is terrible, the hours are brutal, and the job security is zero. He says these industries pay you in psychic income.
Psychic income.
You get to feel cool, you get to say you work at the movie studio, but you can't pay your rent with coolness.
So what's the alternative equation? If it's not passion, career, what is it?
It's a Venn diagram. Imagine 3 overlapping circles.
Okay.
Circle 1, what are you good at? Just raw talent. What do you have an aptitude for? Circle 2, what will people pay you to do? This is about market demand.
Right. What does the world value?
And circle 3, which is maybe the most honest one, what can you tolerate?
What doesn't suck?
Exactly. You want to find the intersection of those 3. And often, that sweet spot is in industries that nobody dreams about as a kid.
Like what?
Iron ore smelting, logistics, tax law, waste management, insurance.
He has a whole section called Boring is Sexy.
He says, and I'm quoting here, if the business sounds so boring, I want to put a gun in my mouth. Bingo. I'll invest.
That is a very specific investment strategy.
But think about why. If an industry is boring, all the smart, cool people avoid it. They're all fighting for the one job at the ad agency.
So there's an arbitrage opportunity.
A human capital arbitrage. If you go into the boring field, if you go into supply chain management, and you bring just a little bit of grit, intelligence, and polish, you can rise to the top very, very quickly. There is simply less competition.
And his theory on passion is interesting, too. We usually think passion leads to success. He flips it.
He thinks success leads to passion. He argues that passion is a byproduct of mastery. Let's say you go into tax law. Sounds dreadful, right?
Objectively, yes.
But you work hard. You sweat. You become the expert in, I don't know, international tax shelters. Suddenly, you're making great money. People respect you. You are the go-to person. You have autonomy. You're solving complex problems.
And suddenly, you find yourself pretty passionate about tax law.
Exactly. Feeling competent feels good. Feeling relevant feels good. The economic security feels good. He says, get great at something the market values and the passion will follow. Don't chase the passion, chase the competence.
Okay, there's one more variable in the career section that we have to touch on. It's uncomfortable, but it's very real. Credentials plus zip code money.
This is where he talks about the American caste system. We like to pretend we don't have a class system in the West. Galloway says we absolutely do, and it's built on 2 things, higher education and geography.
He makes a pretty bold claim. He says, if you tell him your degree, what level and what institution and your zip code, he can predict your lifetime earnings with scary accuracy.
And he's usually right. The data backs it up. So his advice to young people is, first, get credentialed. He acknowledges that college is ridiculously expensive, that it's unfair, that the system is broken.
We don't fight it.
Don't try to fight the system by opting out. Not yet, anyway. Statistically, the degree is still the golden ticket. And then he says, get to a city.
He calls them super cities. New York, London, San Francisco. And he uses this Wimbledon metaphor, which I really loved.
It's the perfect analogy. If you play tennis, you know that if you play against someone better than you, your game improves.
Right, you rise to the occasion.
You run faster, you focus harder, you hit cleaner shots. And if you play against someone worse than
You play down to their level. You get sloppy.
you get sloppy. Galloway says super cities are Wimbledon. They are the courts where the best players in the world are playing. Even if you aren't Roger Federer, just being on the court with them elevates your game.
How does that work in practice?
It's the density of talent, the speed of information, the serendipity of running into someone at a coffee shop who runs a hedge fund. It forces you to level up. The ambient energy is higher.
So his advice is, get your degree, move to a crowded, expensive city, and grind.
But, and this is key, do it while you're young. He makes the point that New York City is an amazing place to be 25, single, and hungry. It is a very, very hard place to be 45, struggling and trying to raise kids.
Right. Use the city to build momentum.
You want to ride that wave early to build the velocity for your career so you can have more options later.
Okay, so let's assume we've followed the algebra so far. We've sweated. We've moved to the city. We're working in a boring industry like commercial insurance.
Yeah.
And we are crushing it. Now we're making money. But Galloway is very specific about the difference between making money and being rich.
This brings us to section 2, the money equations. And the core formula here is wealth. Passive income, burn.
Burn being the key word there. That's your expenses, your lifestyle.
Exactly. He compares two people to explain this, and it's such a helpful visualization. Person A is his dad. His dad and stepmom have a combined income of about $50,000 a year.
Which, in the grand scheme of things, that is not a lot of money. That's a modest income.
It's a very modest income. It comes from Social Security, a small pension, maybe some dividends. But their burn, their annual spending, is $40,000.
So they live within their means.
Well within. They have a paid-off house. They don't buy fancy clothes. They drive older cars. They aren't trying to impress anyone.
So they have $10,000 left over every year.
Result, rich. They are financially free. They aren't stressed. They sleep well at night. Now, compare that to person B. Let's say an investment banker friend of Galloway's in Manhattan. Earnings, $3 million a year.
Okay, that sounds incredibly rich. I mean, $3 million, you're buying whatever you want.
You would think, but let's look at the burn. This person has an ex-wife they are paying massive alimony to.
Ouch.
They have 3 kids in private schools in the city. That's $60K a pop post-tax. They have a house in the Hamptons they have to maintain. They have a master of the universe lifestyle to keep up. The suits, the $1,000 dinners, the cars, the vacations. Their burn is $3.1 million.
Oh, no.
Result, poor.
Poor and terrified, I would imagine.
Poor and terrified. They are one bad bonus check away from insolvency. They are trapped on a hamster wheel that is spinning at 100 miles an hour. Galloway says young people obsess over the top line, the earnings. Adults obsess over the burn.
It's about the gap. You have to widen the gap. And to help widen that gap, he talks about the magic box.
The magic box is compound interest. He calls it the most powerful force in the universe. Einstein called it the 8th wonder of the world. And Galloway's frustrated because the people who need it most, young people, understand it the least.
Because the human brain isn't really wired to think 40 years in the future. We are wired to want the pizza now.
Right. Our brains are terrible at long-term exponential thinking. But he frames it not as saving, which sounds like deprivation, but as alchemy. It's magic.
Ow.
You put $1,000 in the box, you leave it alone. You come back in 40 years and it's $20,000 or $30,000, depending on the market. You didn't do anything. The money worked for you and multiplied while you slept.
And what I found really touching, and this is where the happiness part comes back in, is that he applies this compound interest concept to things other than money. He talks about relationships.
This is a beautiful pivot.
Mm-hmm.
He says, we all know we should invest money, but we forget to invest in people. He uses the example of small gestures.
Like what?
Texting a friend, thinking of you. Calling your mom for 5 minutes when you're walking to the train. Taking a photo when you're all together.
He mentions the app 1 second every day.
Yes. He uses this app where you record just 1 second of video every day. It takes no effort. It's a tiny investment, a nuisance almost. But at the end of the year, you have a 6-minute movie of your life.
I can see how powerful that would be.
You watch it with your family and you see the growth, the memories, the moments you would have totally forgotten. That is emotional compound interest. Small, consistent investments that yield a massive, massive payoff later.
Now, while we're on the topic of money, we have to talk about losing it, or avoiding losing it. Galloway has lived through the dot-com bubble, the 2008 crash. He's seen fortunes evaporate, and he has some, let's call them colorful
Uh-oh.
indicators for when the economy is about to implode.
But the bubble signals, these are classic Galloway. He looks for signs of hubris, of irrational exuberance.
Tell me about the airfield story. This one cracked me up.
So it's 1999, the height of the dot-com boom. Everything is going up and to the right. Galloway is in his mid-30s. He's running an internet company. He goes to an airfield in Teterboro, New Jersey with a bunch of other tech founders.
And they aren't there to fly commercial.
No, they are browsing. They are shopping for private jets, Gulfstreams. And suddenly, Galloway has this moment of clarity. He looks around at these other guys in hoodies and jeans, and thinks, I'm a 34-year-old idiot. None of us have sustainable businesses. We are losing money, and we are shopping for planes.
He calls it the canary in the coal mine.
Exactly. When 30-somethings who aren't profitable are buying jets, or when the guy driving your Uber is giving you stock tips, the market has lost its mind. Run.
He also has the Vogue indicator.
This is a great one, he says. Watch the CEO. If a tech CEO starts appearing on the cover of fashion magazines, specifically Vogue, sell the stock immediately.
Why? What's wrong with being fashionable?
Because it means their focus has shifted. They are no longer focused on the product or the customers or the grind. They are focused on their own celebrity. They are focused on being an icon.
They're building their personal brand instead of the business.
Precisely. He cites Marissa Mayer at Yahoo or David Karp at Tumblr. When the vanity takes over, the business suffers.
And the turtlenecks. We can't forget the turtlenecks.
The black turtleneck. If a CEO starts wearing a black turtleneck, they are trying to cosplay Steve Jobs.
It's a costume.
It's a sign of delusion. It means they think they are a visionary genius rather than a business operator. Galloway says it's a sell signal every single time.
And finally, the edifice complex.
The big buildings. When a company builds a massive futuristic headquarters, the Apple spaceship or the Salesforce tower, it often marks the peak of their stock price.
Why is that?
It signals that the company has shifted from innovation to monument building. They are building shrines to themselves. The money is going into architecture, not R&D.
So the advice here is, keep your burn low, trust the magic box of compound interest, and when you see CEOs in turtlenecks on the cover of Vogue breaking ground on a spaceship headquarters, keep some dry powder, some cash ready because a crash is coming.
Precisely. Be fearful when others are greedy and buy their quality assets for cheap when the bubble pops.
All right, let's go deeper. We fixed our career, we're managing our money, we're dodging economic bubbles, but we can still feel miserable. Let's talk about what's going on inside our heads. Section 3, the psychology of success.
This brings us to a huge topic that Galloway tackles head-on, imposter syndrome.
I think this is my favorite part of the source material because Galloway is so vulnerable here. You look at him, successful, confident, loud, opinionated, but he admits he feels like a total fraud.
He tells the story of receiving the Media for Liberty Award. He's in Washington, D.C. in a tuxedo. He's being honored by a billionaire. There are senators in the room. By any external metric, he has made it.
He's at the top of the mountain.
But the voice in his head is saying something completely different.
What does it say?
The voice says, you're a fraud. You're just a secretary's son. You didn't work that hard. You're fooling them all. Any minute now, someone is going to tap you on the shoulder and ask you to leave.
He shares a stat that 70% of Americans experience this. It's so common. We all feel like we've snuck into the VIP room.
And the common assumption is that we need to cure this, that we need to banish the voice, do affirmations, and, believe in our own greatness. But Galloway reframes it completely.
How does he reframe it?
He says that feeling like a fraud is actually a good sign.
How so? That's counterintuitive.
It means you are reaching beyond your grasp. If you don't feel like an imposter, you are probably staying in your comfort zone. You aren't pushing yourself. You are swimming in the kiddie pool.
So lean into the nausea.
Exactly. The nausea means you are growing. He says, realize that everyone else, including the billionaires, including the CEOs, including the senators, is just figuring it out as they go. Nobody has the manual. We are all imposters.
That leads perfectly into his equation on resilience. Success, resilience, failure.
Notice where failure is in that equation. It's the denominator. It's on the bottom. But the key insight is that you can't reduce failure to zero. Failure is a constant. It's part of the math.
And Galloway lists his own rap sheet of failures, and it is long.
It is. He founded a company called Profit, a big success, but then he founded Red Envelope Total Bankruptcy. He's been divorced. He lost his mom when he was young. He was rejected by business schools. He says, I have failed over and over and over again.
But he's still standing. He's successful.
Because of his recovery time, he calls it mourn and move on. The key to success isn't avoiding the punch. It's how fast you can get up off the mat.
It's the resilience part of the equation.
Exactly. We spend so much energy trying to avoid failure, but the real skill is resilience. How quickly can you dust yourself off and say, okay, what's next?
He has a mantra for this that I think everyone should tape to their mirror. Nothing is ever as bad or as good as it seems.
This is all about perspective. He attributes a lot of our wins and losses to just market dynamics.
The tide.
The tide. When you are winning, when your stock is up, when you get the promotion, when everyone laughs at your jokes, you think it's because you're a genius. You think you are special.
And when you lose, when you get fired,
Yeah.
when your company fails.
You think you're a loser. You think you're worthless, Galloway says. You aren't that smart when you're winning, and you aren't that dumb when you're losing. A lot of it is just the market. It's luck. It's timing. So forgive yourself. Don't take the highs too seriously, and don't take the lows too personally.
I want to talk about the adult in the room concept.
Yeah.
He tells a story about an email that went viral a few years ago. This is the get your shit together story.
Oh, this is a classic. It's 2010. A student arrives to Galloway's brand strategy class at NYU an hour late. Not 5 minutes. An hour.
And Galloway, being Galloway, isn't having it.
No. He kicks him out, tells him to leave.
And the student doesn't take it well.
No. The student sends an email later that evening, and it's a very, let's call it, entitled email.
Right.
He explains that he was sampling classes, and he felt dismissed, and it was uncomfortable, and essentially, how dare you treat me like this?
Wow.
And Galloway replies. He doesn't apologize. He goes full Old Testament.
What does he say?
He writes back, and he just breaks it down. He says, you walked in an hour late. You were disrespectful to me and your peers. And then he drops the hammer. He writes, get your shit together.
They would laugh to a paying student at NYU.
Yes. And it went viral. People debated it. Was he too harsh? Was he a bully? But the lesson he explains in the book is profound.
What's the lesson?
He says that getting the hard stuff right, coding, financial modeling, complex strategy, that's difficult. Everyone struggles with that. But getting the easy stuff right, manners, punctuality, saying thank you, respecting institutions, that is easy. That requires zero talent.
And if you can't get the easy stuff right,
You will not succeed no matter how smart you are. If you are the guy who is always late and entitled and disrespectful, people will not want to work with you. You will be a liability.
it differentiates you.
It does. In a world where everyone is casual, where everyone is disrupting, being the person who is on time, who is polite, who respects the process, that makes you the adult in the room.
It's about shifting from being a consumer to a contributor.
Exactly. Children create problems. Adults solve them. Children expect to be served. Adults serve.
That's a perfect segue to the next section, because the ultimate act of serving others, of growing up, is about who you choose to build a life with. Section 4, the love equations.
Galloway starts this section with a very bold claim, he says. Who you partner with is more important than your career choice.
More important than career. The equation is 1 + 1, 2.
This is the economic argument for marriage. We usually talk about marriage as romance, as poetry. Galloway talks about it as a joint venture. He says married people accumulate 3x the assets of their single peers.
3 times. That is a massive difference. Why?
It makes sense when you break it down. You share costs, one rent, one internet bill. You specialize. One person handles the investments, the other handles the household logistics and planning. And critically, you provide emotional redundancy.
Emotional redundancy.
If one person loses their job, the other can step up. It allows you to take risks. It's a partnership in the business of life.
But you have to choose the right partner. And he has some criteria that are, again, brutally honest. He breaks it down into 3 buckets.
First, sexual attraction. He says if the sex is healthy and good, it's about 10% of the relationship. You don't think about it that much. It's just there, like a good foundation.
But if it's bad,
If it's bad or non-existent or a source of stress, it becomes 90% of the relationship. It drains the energy out of the room. It becomes a source of resentment and insecurity. So you have to have that spark.
okay, that makes sense. Second is values alignment.
Do you agree on money? That's the big one. Financial stress is the #1 divorce creator. Do you agree on religion? Kids, how to raise them, where to live. If you want to live in a yurt in Mongolia and she wants to live in Manhattan, you have a problem that love alone probably can't solve.
And the third one, this is the one I think is most unique to Galloway.
He says, find someone who likes you.
Someone thinking you are great is a feature, not a bug.
It sounds so obvious, doesn't it? Marry someone who likes you. But think about how young people date, especially young men. They try to punch above their weight class. They want the supermodel. They want the person who is cool and distant.
Right, the
They
chase.
interpret rejection or indifference as high value. If she ignores me, she must be a catch. I need to win her over. And Galloway says, stop that. That is a recipe for misery.
Why?
Don't marry someone who ignores you or tolerates you. Marry someone who looks at you and thinks you are the best thing that ever happened to them. You need that adoration. Life is hard. The world will beat you up. You need a cheerleader in your corner, not a critic.
He also gives some very tactical advice on maintaining that love. The cold and hungry rule.
I use this one myself, he says. Never let your partner be cold or hungry.
It's so simple.
But it's true. Think about your last 5 arguments. How many of them happened because someone had low blood sugar or was freezing waiting for an Uber? He says, buy the cashmere scarf. Keep energy bars in the glove compartment. Solve the physiological problems before they become emotional problems.
And scorekeeping.
Don't do it. If you are constantly tallying up, I did the dishes, so you owe me, or I paid for dinner, so you do the laundry, you are turning your marriage into a transaction.
And in a transaction, there's a winner and a loser.
And you both feel like you're losing. Aim to be generous. If you try to win the relationship loses.
Let's talk about family. Galloway admits he wasn't someone who always wanted kids. He was focused on his career. He was selfish. But now the equation is happiness, family.
He talks about how kids answer the fundamental question, why am I here? Before kids, the answer is usually to have fun or to achieve or to reproduce.
It's all about me.
It's about me. After kids, the answer is to protect and serve them. It shifts the focus from me to them, and that shift is relieving. It takes the pressure off your own ego.
He shares a really vulnerable story about co-sleeping.
Yeah, this one gets me. He talks about his son coming to the bedroom door at 2 a.m. The kid is 4 or 5 years old. He's holding a basket of Matchbox cars, offering them as a bribe to be let into the bed.
And Galloway, trying to be the good parent and follow the sleep training books, sends him back to his room.
And he regrets it deeply. He says, looking back, he wishes he had just let him in. He says, trust your instincts over the books. Those moments where your child just wants to be near you, they're so fleeting, they end.
And you don't get him back.
There comes a day when they stop coming to the door. Don't optimize for rules, optimize for connection.
And then there's the other side of family. Not the beginning of life, but the end. The good death.
This is the story of his mother. She was dying of cancer. Galloway was in his 30s. He put his life on hold. He moved into the Del Webb retirement community in Nevada to live with her for 7 months.
This wasn't a glamorous time, I'm guessing.
Not at all. He was sleeping on a cot next to her bed. He was managing her meds. He was carrying her to the bathroom because she was too weak to walk. He was watching Frasier and Jeopardy with her every single night.
And he talks about that time not as a burden, but as a gift.
He calls it an ROI for the soul. He says that providing a good death for someone you love, making their exit graceful, comfortable, dignified, is one of the most profound sources of satisfaction a human can feel. It validates your own humanity. It proves to yourself that you are a good person.
Connects to his idea of immortality. He says, love given completely is eternal.
He believes that when you love someone unconditionally, whether it's a child or a dying parent, you are fulfilling your evolutionary purpose. You are part of the chain. You matter.
Speaking of that chain and helping others, we have to talk about mentorship. The story of Cy Cordner.
This story is straight out of a movie. So rewind. Galloway's 13. He's being raised by a single mom. They don't have a lot of money. He feels invisible. He calls himself remarkably unremarkable. He's not good at sports. He's not getting good grades. And his mom has a boyfriend, Randy. And Randy gives Scott a gift, $200 bills, which to a 13-year-old kid in that situation in the 70s is a fortune. Randy tells him, go invest this in the stock market.
So Scott puts on a blazer, probably too big for him, and goes to a brokerage firm.
He walks into Merrill Lynch, and the broker's there. They just ignore him. He's a kid with $200. He's a waste of their time. He feels small. He feels confirmed in his belief that he doesn't matter.
Then he goes across the street to Dean Witter.
And he meets a guy named Cy Cordner. Cy is a serious broker. He's busy. But he doesn't ignore the kid. He invites him in. He sits him down. He treats him like a serious investor. He explains the market. He helps him buy 13 shares of Columbia Pictures.
And then Cy does something amazing.
He stays in touch. Scott would call him from a payphone at school during recess to check his stock price. And Cy would take the call. And more than that, Cy would call Scott's mom.
What for?
Not to sell her anything, but just to tell her, hey, your son is smart, he's asking good questions, he's doing a good job.
He made him feel visible.
He validated him, he told him he mattered. And 40 years later, Galloway tracks Cy Cordner down. He finds him in Florida. And he writes him a letter just to say thank you, to say, you saw me when I felt invisible.
What's the lesson there? What does he want us to take from that?
It's about the power of noticing a child who isn't yours. Galloway connects this to his concept of finding your gorilla.
Let's unpack that, the gorilla concept. This is his take on masculinity, right?
It is, and it's a really necessary update to how we view being a man. Galloway talks about his own evolution. When he was young, being a man was about being Tarzan.
Impressing friends, sleeping with women, being ripped, being aggressive.
Right, the alpha myth. But as he matured, he looked at biology. He realized that in the animal kingdom, the successful male monkeys, the silverbacks, the gorillas, aren't just the strongest. They are the ones with the strongest social bonds.
It's about community.
They are the ones who protect the troop. They are the ones who share food. So mature masculinity is about relevance and protection.
So it's not about being the strongest ape, it's about being the most useful ape.
Exactly. It's about being a responsible head of household, being a good neighbor, respecting institutions, voting, and taking an interest in a kid who isn't yours, like Cy Cordner did for him. That is what it means to be a man in the best sense. It's about utility to others.
We are nearing the end of the stack here, but there are a few more variables we need to plug into the algebra. One is a negative variable, alcohol, unhappiness.
This is a hard truth for a lot of people. Galloway cites the Harvard Grant study. This is the longest-running study on human happiness in history. They tracked men for 75 years.
And the finding.
Alcohol is the single biggest predictor of unhappiness. It wasn't just a correlation, it was a cause. It derailed careers, it destroyed marriages, it ruined health.
And Galloway's personal about this too, right?
He says he was fun Scott when he drank. He was the life of the party. He thought it was his superpower. But looking back, he realizes he was a mediocre person when he was drinking.
What does he mean by that?
It clouded his judgment. It lowered his ambition. It got in the way of his potential. He wasn't his best self.
So the algebra suggests cut the booze, or at least minimize it severely. And finally, car lion.
This is experiences over things.
We hear this a lot, but what's the math? Why is the lion better than the car?
The math is hedonic adaptation. If you buy a new car, you get a spike of dopamine. You love the smell, you love how it drives. But after a month,
It's just your car.
it's just your car. It's a utility. You adapt to it. It becomes background noise. And then it starts to scratch and break down and cause you stress.
But the lion...
If you take your family on a safari and you see a lion, that memory doesn't depreciate. In fact, it appreciates. You talk about it for years. Remember the lion? Remember how scared we were? It becomes part of your identity. It binds the family together.
So drive a Hyundai. Take your wife to St. Bart's.
Exactly. Invest in the things that live in your head and your relationships, not the things that live in your garage.
So we've covered a massive amount of ground here. We've gone from the sweaty grind of the 20s to the compound interest of the 40s to the gratitude of the 50s. We've talked about marrying the right person and avoiding the wrong substances. If we had to sum up the algebra of happiness into one final formula, what is it?
Galloway sums it up pretty elegantly. He says, happiness, health plus family plus meaningful work.
It's that triad, the three legs of the stool.
You need to sweat to build the career. That's the work. That gives you security and relevance. You need to invest in relationships to build the tribe. That's the family. And you need to take care of the machine. That's the health. You can't neglect any of them for too long.
And understanding the balance, or rather the strategic imbalance.
Right. The struggle in the beginning, the sweat phase, is what buys you the ability to focus on the family and health later. It's a sequence. You can't skip the steps.
I love the challenge he poses at the end of the lecture. He asks us to look in the mirror.
He asks, are you managing to the test? In school, we learn to manage to the test, get the A, get the credential. In life, the test we think matters is money.
It's the most visible metric.
So we manage to that, we track our net worth, we track our salary, we optimize for the number on the bank statement.
But those aren't the metrics that actually matter in the end.
No. He challenges you to track different metrics. How many times did you call your parents this week? How many dinners did you have with your kids where nobody was on a phone? How many times did you help someone who couldn't help you back? How many Cy Cordner moments did you create?
It's a reality check, a different kind of accounting.
It is. And he ends with that beautiful thought. Love received is comforting, love reciprocated is rewarding, and love given completely is eternal.
That's where we will leave it. The algebra of happiness. It's not about solving for X to get a Ferrari. It's about solving for X to get a life full of love and relevance.
And maybe, just maybe, being the psych coordinator for someone else.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for diving in with us. Go call your mom. Go sweat. And we'll see you on the next deep dive.